Welcome back. Well, what a fantastic start to episode 2. And we're not slowing down. As I mentioned just now, we have the panel right now, super apps and platforms exploring the implications for European markets. Now, we'll be discussing everything from APIs to partnerships to the future of distribution. Let's dive straight in and meet our wonderful panel. First of all, we have Evangelos Avramakis. Hello, Evangelos.
Hello, everybody.
Great to see you. Where are you today?
I'm actually a little bit outside of Zurich, but at home for sure.
Very good. Evangelos is the head of digital ecosystems research and development at Swiss Re. Great to have you here. Next up, we have Philippe Blanc. Hello, Philippe.
Good morning.
Great to see you there. Philippe is head of omnichannel and digital business at AXA Switzerland. Wonderful to have you with us, Philippe. And last but not least, we have Esben Nielsen. Hello, Esben.
Hi there.
Great to see you. And where are you today?
I'm in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Lovely. It's good to have this global reach, actually, cross-European reach. Esben is Chief Commercial Officer at Penny. Great to have you all here today. Okay, there's lots to get through, so let's jump straight in. Remember, if you'd like to put forward a question to the panel, you are absolutely part of our panel today. Towards the end of our discussion, we will get your questions directly to them. We won't have seen them, so we'll give them the best go that we can. But the way to get in touch is on the live Q&A field on your screen right now on Grip. Get in touch. You will drive that last part of the discussion. Okay, let's get a glimpse of the world of super apps. The super app trend has really broken through in the last 5 years or so, providing a real one-stop shop for lots of user needs. Look, we see examples growing rapidly in China, in India, South America, Southeast Asia. But what does it really mean for insurance companies in the rest of the world, not least in Europe? Let's jump straight in. First of all, Esben, first impressions. Are super apps an opportunity or are they a threat?
Well, Lindley, the way I see it is that, consumers, they drive change. It's the consumers that drive change, and we're lazy. I'm lazy, in particular when it comes to insurance. And I think what super apps do is they provide the ultimate convenience. So that is definitely a threat for some, I would say, because,
yes,
they are driving the change. But mostly, actually, I see it as a massive opportunity to get in front of customers with relevant context for your insurance products. So, but I think my recommendation for insurers in that context is that they need to change their operating model for the super apps. So they need to, consider, are we for super apps or are we not? That would be my take on it.
You've got to make a real decision, haven't you? And I guess if you're not in it, then you may not win it. So Evangelos, let's just look at the super apps from around the world. Could they start to move into Western markets soon? Or is it a case of, Western markets deciding to do that for themselves?
I mean, if you have started this question a couple of years ago in Asia or in South America, I mean, you would have the same question first gradually and perhaps then suddenly, right? And then everybody's talking about it. So I think like the CEO of CB Insights is saying this, it happens all over and just a matter of time because the key driver is the consumer. So the consumer is actually disrupting the kind of world because he's experiencing much more convenient services, and that's actually where ecosystem kicks in, all the super apps.
Absolutely. And it's a great opportunity. These are services within your super app. So actually it's a great opportunity, Philippe, for collaboration. Actually, there are so many opportunities within that, if you like, super app.
What we're lacking as insurance companies is usually the frequent interaction with our customers. And there, if you have a chance to bring your products and also new services through super apps to your consumer, then it has a value add for all. But on the other hand, I also agree, it's also a threat for market leaders like AXA. I mean, there are other insurance with the potential to get into this customer interaction we're also seeking. So it's a bit both, but I also see it as a chance.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is, you really have to be at the forefront of this. You can't just be left behind. Philippe, you must put some effort into this and into the services, the value adds that you put into your super app, but also the design of that thing, because otherwise you will quickly, as Evangelos has said, you will quickly be left behind as that exponential curve takes over.
Yeah, exactly. And you have other insurer all day long, all night long, developing features and services. And if we, from a pole position as a large global company who can leverage also these services between countries, if you lag behind, then we might really miss this opportunity.
Yeah. Esben, what super apps have you seen that are gaining popularity? And if possible, why do you think they are?
I mean, there are examples from Asia, obviously, like WeChat, Alipay, Grab, the Singapore car service, and I think they're great examples of, they've just embedded all the services that you need as a consumer right at your fingertips. So that's everything from car sharing to payment to health coverage and whatnot. But what I'm seeing is that they're very popular in Asia. I think we do see also in Europe, at least. I think we're seeing services such as Revolut, for example, the banking service, the new banking service branching out. They're having insurance now. They're doing other services, to kind of provide convenience to the end customer. We're seeing Tesla, bundling in services to their ecosystem as well. We're seeing Amazon as well. So we are definitely seeing these super apps also getting maybe in other shapes and forms here in Europe to start with, but they are gaining popularity with providing these convenient services to customers.
Yeah, this is platformification, isn't it? It's ecosystems. This is nothing new. If you've missed this conversation already, you've missed quite a few conversations because it's been around. Yeah. The question's been around for a long time. But I suppose there is still stuff that we can learn because Asia is further ahead in terms of the adoption and the customer engagement with these things. What can we in the West, Evangelos, learn from what's happening further afield at the moment?
So I think there are a couple of things, but I think we need to start definitely by the consumer. So we are a product-driven industry, like the financial services is. So we focus on features, tweaks, on stuff like that, but we don't focus on what are the kind of jobs that the customer needs to be done. So the jobs to be done theory that's been developed by Clayton Christensen is something which is quite strange to our industry. So when I see the Grab or the Gojek or the other ones, they develop a number of services around not only the customer journey, but around what is happening next. So the kind of next best action is already on their fingertips. So this means they need to aggregate services that really matter to the consumer.
Yeah. And
aggregating services means partners, lots of frequency, high engagement, but also trust. And trust is something that is really very core at actually the insurance industry.
We heard that a bit earlier on with Nicola and Jason about about trust came in very, very clearly. Of course, it's going to come in very clearly. Evangelos, just briefly though, it's hard enough to put a set of insurance services personalized together for customers. Never mind choosing lots of interesting value adds on top. I mean, you've got so much work to do to decide which services you think customers would want. I mean, how do you do that?
Actually, the question is, what is the kind of play you want to have within the kind of digital ecosystem? So is this something you want to be at the center? So you want to orchestrate everything? So you are kind of the core kind of natural touch point? Or is somebody else doing this for you because he's much more in favor, or his ability to do that, so engage in the right way and interact in the right way, and you just complement the services, right? So it's really crucial to decide what's going to be the next play in the future, and how do I need to adopt my business model around that? That's more the question.
Right. Philippe, let's talk about APIs for a second. How can insurers learn, adapt, adopt the appropriate technology? As Evangelos says, you don't necessarily have to build it all yourself, but you do have to partner with the right people to facilitate a super app in the right way, if that's what you choose to do.
Well, first, insurer need to understand that data and processes needs to be contextualized. It's not enough anymore for distribution partner ecosystems just to have a broad data interface. They really need the data and the processes in smaller pieces. That means we need to understand that our products and services need to come in models, in smaller parts, in not in large solution. Once this is understood, you can start thinking what technology will help you there. Within AXA Group, we have different approaches. So we have different partners like the ING Bank or the Credit Suisse Bank, and we develop different solutions. So for ING, which is a large bank insurance corporation, we bought a startup and we built the API technology and also the backend greenfield. For Credit Suisse, we need to talk with software providers, and there are many. So there's Google APG, for example, who has capabilities to build these interfaces, and we partner with them, we buy the license, and we have software developers. Important, I think it's also, we want to also bundle different services. So we just don't want to have one product to this side and the other. We also need to have bundles, and we need the integration layer. And for the integration layer, for example, we in Switzerland use SAP S/4HANA infrastructure to build up these skills.
Yeah, it's good to. Thanks for breaking it apart. That's really useful to sort of see all those different elements. To Esben and Evangelos, any thoughts on that in terms of the use of APIs or the development of APIs? Because Philippe has an army of people there working on these things to make sure that they're right. I mean, it's not possible for everybody.
No, I think I'm quite surprised by the state of APIs in the insurance industry. So, I mean, we've been talking about it for a few years, but still, I think the state of API is at a very kind of early stage, really, really early stage. A lot of insurance companies around Europe, at least the ones we're talking to, they're starting to build these capabilities, but they're not very far. And I think if we look at super apps, I mean, what they live off and what they do is speed, agility. So the way to bring in these services really quickly, the way to bring in new capabilities in their app ecosystem really, really quickly. And I think there's a gap there today, at least, from our experience, between, the capabilities in terms of openness, API data that insurance carriers can provide and what is needed for the super apps, because they really are in demand of, the services, and they need them, but they also need speed. And I think some can provide it, and some might not be able to do that, at least with the state of APIs out there today.
Yeah, we'll come back to talk to you about data in a second. But Evangelos, any thoughts on this as well? Because yes, they're based on data, but the principle of either developing or using off the shelf or developing with an external, this is always the question. But you really have to have such a clear view of what you're trying to achieve first.
Absolutely. I mean, it's now interesting that we're talking about APIs, that we're talking about business, to deliver business in a different way, to plug it in anywhere. And I just did some research to think about how many APIs are available so we can count them. And the insurance industry is really lagging far behind compared to e-commerce play, to social media, or to banking even, or to healthcare. So it looks like there's some room on improvement potential, if you will. Yeah. But actually, its speed, as what Nirmba says, is actually matters. And the openness to exchange data, services, we're not the kind of insurance industry that is open to that one. So it needs to tweak the culture as well.
It's a mindset thing, isn't it? Let's talk about data, Esben, for a second. Insurers have, as everybody watching this has a huge amount of data at their fingertips, but it's not always been easy to harness that and take that out of your systems and make sure it's real-time accurate. So quality, quantity of customer data. How fundamentally important is it to get that house in order first before you go anywhere near a super app?
I think that's tremendously important. I think you also spoke about it in the previous session, actually, Lindley, that, the fact is that no one lies in bed at night and thinks about insurance. You lay in bed at night and thinks about buying a Tesla or house or, changing jobs. And that's where insurance becomes really relevant, because insurance is always a tag-along product to another product or an event in your life, typically. And I think super apps and platforms, they provide really a kind of the unique customer data and also analytics to make insurance highly relevant. Yeah. So, being able as an insurance carrier to actually leverage that outside data and also provide your own data to find out where can you become relevant. Those will be the winners. But I think also, as Evangelos says, it's a business philosophy even. I mean, you need to kind of think about how do I change my business or operating model, if you will, to efficiently expose products and services based on that data. And that I think also requires kind of letting go of some of the full customer ownership in the value chain in order to do that. That's kind of a philosophy that needs to change.
Yeah. Philip, maybe I can just throw it to you for a second. Something else that came up, and it's fundamental to this, is cloud as well. The ability to flex and move and to use the technology that perhaps you relinquish control slightly. That's the mindset change. You get rid of, you release yourself from having the core, and you start to use things like the cloud. How important is it for that mindset change to affect the technology that you are going to implement to allow super apps, for example, to happen?
Well, it's huge. We come out the mainframe technology area. I mean, we have a huge old application in place, which need to be also scalable, secure, and everything, since we have so many customer policies. And now we move to the cloud, big strategic topic, of course. I mean, having a cloud is not a nice to have, it's a must have, right? And this changes also the mindset of our developers, of our IT department to realize that you have to work together. You need to adapt to new technology. So we also need to invest heavily into the education of our staff. So I think IT people always were very good in learning new stuff, but I think that the speed and the speed to learn new things, get familiar with the cloud infrastructure is enormous these days. And that's also in terms of cultural transformation of how to become an agile organization. That was a big effort we have done in the last 4 years.
In a world where we all live online currently, a lot of us do anyway, and we can't use a certain video conferencing tool above another certain video conferencing tool, there is still quite a few questions here, but lovely to have you with us. You are writing your questions to us at home. Thank you very much. Do that through the live Q&A field if you haven't already. Lots of questions coming through, and I will ask them to our panel a little bit later on. For example, is this fad or future is a question that's just come through. We'll get to that in due course. But actually, I almost, Evangelos, want to throw that to you. How will super apps and platforms transform the insurance value chain? Is it fad or is it future?
So actually, it's impacting us already. So it's not like the future. So it happens, and the question is, how are we able to adopt to these developments? And there are some crucial kind of challenges, like that was mentioned by Philip, right? Or kind of mindset, the technology behind. So cloud is today a commodity. It's just, it's like telematics. It's already commoditized. So it's not about, doing this technical. You need to do this right. The question is, are you caring more about the customer in a different way that you were doing it before? So with only 2 kind of interactions per year, it's going to be very hard to have a deep customer insights. You need to partner with anybody in order that you have a good understanding what might matter and how you develop your further value propositions. So it's, to me, there are one area which is very much about commoditized, and the other area is really about who has this deep insights of customers to understand what needs to be created. And this could be beyond actually our core value proposition on risk transfer. And that's not that easy, right?
No. And, interestingly, we will, of course, in these conversations, look at the technologies, and we've done that. With APIs, of course, we've done that. But actually that hearts and minds, the caring, the thinking about business outcomes, that's been really important too. Is caring, as Evangelos has just talked about, is that going to be fundamental to deciding what super app you are either involved with or design in the future, caring about the customer?
Yeah, I think so. I just also think we shouldn't forget that they're actually quite good at it, at carrying. I think even though they have tremendous power, and insurance is another type of, commodity even, because it has a whole kind of downstream value chain along with it that, where trust is kind of the unique thing you need to provide. But I think a lot of them are quite good at it because they live off of consumers. I mean, and they will fail if they not provide the carrying as well. So they will choose the insurance partner that can help them provide that as well. They will choose the partners that protects their kind of services with the consumers at the end of the day. I truly believe that, and some will do bad. I presume some will do better. And I think in Europe, we'll be even more kind of attentive to that carrying, is my expectations that we're seeing in other places. I think a lot of things are being adopted in Asia where we kind of, mold it and form it to our own, culture in Europe, which is a bit different in terms of that. We're kind of more closely tied with our, insurance companies. So yes, I think that'll form the relationships, definitely.
So, Philip, briefly before we move on to the next section, the fact that you care will be exhibited, will be shown in the partners you choose and the services you provide. Is that where perhaps European insurers need to focus on to evolve these super apps?
Well, what I see is we should not just prepare our insurance services be super apps ready. I mean, we as an insurance industry, we have to focus on innovation and differentiate ourselves. I think also super apps, they just want to have insurance. They need one insurance. But if we can find out, based on our financial strengths, customer base, new services, develop new services, differentiate our products through new services, and then bring these new services to the super apps, I think it's a win-win. And at the end, the customer wins it all. Super apps wins, and insurance company wins. So that's what I strongly believe.
Absolutely great. Lots of questions coming through. Thank you very much. You responded to that last call out, but please keep sending your questions in. We'll get through as many as we can towards the end of our discussion in around about 11 minutes time. Okay. Let's move on. COVID-19 is only the latest disruptor to what we used to think was normal, isn't it? So how could distribution models change, particularly with the rapid evolution of digital ecosystems? Let's look at that for a moment. Evangelos, first of all, how are digital ecosystems, do you think, evolving, or is there a revolution going on?
So if you try to understand how are they evolving in different areas in the world, some of them have started on mobility, like the Grab or the Gojek in Asia. Some of them have started in e-commerce or in social media or in hospitality. So it looks like, they started somewhere and then they aggregated additional value-adding services. Yeah. And in some areas, you have a new competitor. So it's not an insurance competition, an insurance competition between insurance A and B. It's an ecosystem competing in another ecosystem. So it means that there will not be enough place for 20 ecosystems. There will be enough place for some of them. So the question is, how can you try to be part of this kind of journey? And it's just natural that the differentiation aspect will play a massive role. Yeah. So as Philip was saying we need to start thinking about differentiation and not commoditizing our business.
It's interesting. One thing we've talked about, Philippe, today already and yesterday in Insurance Innovators Day 1 was about how insurance can move beyond, and Ping An were talking about this morning, move beyond being pure insurance to be something much more all-encompassing, more relevant. So insurance distribution, how does it need to adapt with digital ecosystems in mind? And essentially, will it really be insurance, or will it appear to customers to be something more?
Well, I think ecosystem can evolve to relevant distribution partners. They are not at the moment, at least not in Switzerland, but they're on the way. And I think we need to have a strategy on how we want to cooperate. You can have an approach, you can a pure white label insurance provider to this ecosystem. That's one approach. The other approach is you can leverage your brand. You can bring in your brand and also gain or provide trust, be a trusted partner within the ecosystem. You maybe have shared customer and the ecosystem can profit on maybe cross-selling. And third, I think that's important. I think these ecosystems have the potential to know the customer better as insurance company today know their customer. And knowing the customer better needs to evolve in offering better tailored services, products, prices to the customer. I think there is an advantage in the distribution because the customer can benefit from the data we get, the products we give back to the customer. And I think in that field, we need to think a bit more as we did.
Yeah.
So that's my 5 cents.
I'm glad you mentioned profit, because something that we haven't talked about and probably weren't expecting to talk about, but it's always part of the conversation, is where do you make money from these things? Can I, from a digital ecosystem where you're perhaps part of it rather than in charge of it, Esben, just briefly, how do you focus on return on investment or return on involvement, if you will, Esben?
I might actually be the wrong person to ask here, but I'll try anyways, because I'm not an insurance carrier. But anyways, what I see as a unique opportunity for Philip and Evangelos, honestly, is actually to provide services beyond insurance, as they're also talking about. So provide insurance beyond or products beyond insurance to these ecosystems, and we are seeing examples of insurance companies, traditional insurance companies, changing their operating model to do just that. And is that the right fit for all? No. I don't believe so. We'll see insurance companies going the way where they will still be kind of across the value chain, but we'll also see insurance companies changing their business and operating model to say, all right, we want to be the best at providing products and services into ecosystems or platforms. That's what I foresee, at least.
You did an amazing job of answering a question that that you found it difficult to do. It was incredibly right, and those partnerships and Philip mentioned cross-selling as well. There is something about being more. Again, it's a wide route from insurance around to consumer that allows you to be part of their lives and therefore can make some money. Evangelos, what do you think in terms of the the profitability of these new models and new marketplaces?
I mean, if you play the complementary role where you plug in your solution, then for sure the sales and distribution costs will be kind of the core driver. On the other hand, if you decouple all your service and you get a lot of insights about the customer, you might not only personalize the offering, but you might offer them with the appropriate price that makes you stay relevant and makes you stay profitable. So the kind of one size fits all is not applicable to ecosystem, because the data insights and the granularity of the insights should give you a even better advantage. Yes. So it's more or less how we tweak and how we deal with data.
That's true, isn't it, Philip? You can actually now, if you are part of one of these ecosystems, you can now get a wider range of data. You can start to look at IoT. You can start to look at your partner retailers, for example, and start to get a clearer idea of what your customers are doing.
Yeah, and you can make it more convenient. I mean, since you know a lot more as today, you don't need to ask him, and you make it more convenient. And there, of course, is also the hope that you get a premium on the convenience. So if you buy an insurance through an ecosystem, very simple, very fast, and very convenient, maybe the price is not the only variable which the consumer is focusing on. And then at the end, there's the margin.
Yeah, absolutely. Esben, partnerships, strategic ecosystem partnerships. I mean, is this, and we are basing this on that this is the way to go, the only way to go. Do you think that strategic ecosystem partnerships have to be made right now for insurers to be relevant in the future?
Well, I think the fact is that this is not a new thing in the industry. I mean, we've seen successful bank insurance partnerships for decades, and the reason they work is that banks are able to provide relevance and context for insurance products, and that does not only drive profitability on the customer, but it also drives customer loyalty and retention for the customers. And I expect ecosystems to, provide that as well, and maybe even be more successful and predominant in the future, simply because of the kind of, compared to banks, if you just look at bank insurance, provide a really broad range of relevance for insurance products. So I think it's a great opportunity, and we'll see a lot more of it.
What about banking marketplaces, Evangelos? I mean, this is not the first time we've had this conversation, and marketplace banking is a well-worn term. How much of an opportunity is that for insurers, do you think?
So this terms of bank insurance and assure banking has been there for a couple of years, so it is not new. Yeah. Because of the COVID, of the pandemic, I think the health side will play an even more fundamental role. So financial and health well-being will be naturally be playing together. So I doubt that the bank insurance play or insurance banking play will be enough to be sustainable as a future business model in developing a kind of a ecosystem. It could be a nice platform play, but I doubt that on the interaction that might be relevant, the health side will be omitted. And I think what really cares today is you need to be healthy in order to be able to still work as an employer. So this size will even get more and more traction, I would say.
Really interesting. Before we go to audience questions in a couple of minutes' time, Philippe, maybe I can throw it to you. What, as an insurer, can I do now to at least evaluate my potential place in super app development or my place within that ecosystem? What should I be looking at now to decide what I need to do next?
I think we should not forget the purpose we have as an industry. I mean, insurance are important to secure wealth, to give to people the confidence to go further, because we just insure what they have today. So we give them really a good feeling, and we enable them to live a life that they can imagine. So that's our role. And I think also when we now talk about new ecosystem, I think this role is still relevant for society, and insurance will always be a bit in that area. So we can provide trust. We have to stay trustworthy in terms of data protection, in terms of claims handling. And that's what we also have to bring into the ecosystem, a really strong brands, the trust feeling, and also to understand what's our role in society. And I'm sure this role will remain.
There is that element of trust which comes all the way through. It's a conversation that everyone will have continuously. But anyone who takes your money in financial services needs to prove that they are trustworthy. On the other hand, actually, Evangelos, insurers are inherently, for customers, a trustworthy place to insure themselves, to protect themselves. So I suppose, does that need to be now emphasized that, if you as a reputable insurer are part of a digital ecosystem or part of a super app, that actually that is a good place to go? Does that not need to be brought to the front?
So I think, as you mentioned, the kind of trust play is very important. The question is, within ecosystem, do you already know who's delivering the service or the product? So sometimes it's not even clear, because it might be labeled as a ecosystem service or ecosystem product, or you are labeling it that you more or less try to play the trust play that you're a existent and trustworthy player.
Yeah.
So I think you need to really understand what matters from the consumer side. In some markets, perhaps your brand is so important that it really leverages actually the digital ecosystem. Yeah. In some areas, it might not be the case. So you need to really be calm and just to work in the background, right? So this might matter.
You phrased it much better than I phrased the question. The fact is, though, if anyone says, I am trustworthy, they may or may not be trustworthy, so you have to be very careful. Okay, well, it's been a great discussion so far. Now it's time to hear from you, but we'll first of all hear from our pundits, John and Javier. And don't forget, there is still time to submit your question. Lots coming through to my screen here. I will get to your questions in just a second. But first of all, good to see you again, John and Javier. John, first of all, any thoughts on what we've been talking about? There's been quite a few issues, as always, with our panel discussions that we've covered. Anything that really stood out to you in terms of super apps, ecosystems, or the trust issue?
I mean, I thought what I really liked was that there's a lot of innovation here. This is a very new phenomenon, and it's a pretty scary phenomenon. If we go to the extent of what we're seeing in Asia in terms of the power that these new super apps have. On the other side, I thought what was really interesting was the panelists were all saying that actually this is an age-old problem in insurance. The difference between if you're a primary insurer, do you own customers or are you a manufacturer? And I think this debate is as old as the insurance industry, and I think that really is the profound challenge. I think we're seeing a new form of it with these super apps, but it's the same issues as there's been with bank insurance, with dealing with brokers, etc., in the past, and with aggregators in the UK. So I think that I'd be really interested in the panel's perspective once we get into questions as to how they think the balance will be struck, and how the primary insurer role will evolve, whether we're going to see more specialism in manufacturing or whether we're going to see more specialism in the distribution and branded play. And I suppose different markets, I thought Evangelos's final comment was absolutely spot on. Different markets, different segments, it will be different outcomes, I think.
Yeah, it depends. There's always going to be an answer that you can't escape, really. But in brief, Javier, what did you see? What did you like? Do you think, back to the first question, opportunity, or kind of a threat enough for us to have to take it very, very seriously right now?
Well, when you take it very seriously, but I think also it's a different world. I mean, we were talking about super apps in Asia. I mean, a company like Ant Financial has 2 million mini apps within the super app ecosystem. So we're talking a different magnitude. We're talking something different. And I cannot see a super app really in this fashion developing here in Europe, because you need to start from somewhere. What I do see in Europe, and it has been mentioned, is there are some local ecosystems by businesses. It could be a mobility ecosystem, health ecosystems, and that, of course, that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And insurers have a key role in developing or being part of these ecosystems.
Yeah.
I would mention the last idea. I think it was a bit there, and I think Evangelos also talked about it. I think we are going towards invisible insurance. Really, insurances will become more and more invisible, more and more embedded in experiences, and we will, in some part of it, we will not know who the insurer is. Right. So on one point, we will have invisible insurance, where that will be embedded there, and that will go to really to the users' needs, because users need to be protected and they want to be protected. And if by executing an experience they get protection, then they will click, they will get the protection. Yeah. That will be invisible. On the other side, we have, of course, branding, digital trust, where you have a big AXA, a big Allianz, a big Swiss Re there to insure. Yeah, always, yes. Yeah.
Very good. Let's go to audience questions straight away. We have lots to get through, so let's keep it as short as we can in terms of our answers, if we can answer the questions. Okay. We answered already I didn't have your name, but is this fad or future? Do you think there'll be a revolution in more developed markets? I think we're covering that in some ways. I did see a question come through from Fouad Hosseini, who Fouad we are going to have in conversation with. If super apps and integrating into platform ecosystems are seen as a way for insurers to future-proof their market shares, could a common and open API standard help to speed up the transformation of the industry? Okay, who wants to talk about standardization? Evangelos, I haven't seen that size of smile from you yet. So let's go to Evangelos. What do you think? Standardization.
I like that because whatever we want to do as an industry, we want to differentiate, but not to standardize. So any kind of approach that is going to, we do things in a similar way that the other ones, so we name it and we plug in the same thing. I think banking industry has gone through that journey, and the insurance try to avoid this path. Everybody wants to have that, but I think this is not what we want to do.
But if but the core code, the core API can be standardized, perhaps, or the access can be standardized. But then you can do different things with it. Yeah,
the product is the problem. It's not the interaction with the. So to me, just add one point of that is the customer experience. So if you deliver a service to another ecosystem, so the way you product it through an API, I mean, if you're not best in class, there's no way you will survive there. And I think there's another angle. It's not only about the product design, it's really about the whole experience that you need to embed. So the API is a crucial element, but what is in there is even more of importance.
Really good. Let's find another question here. In fact, Philippe, I will throw that to you very briefly because I saw a big smile from you as well. It's a real jostle between standardization and distinction. It's a very how would you strike that balance? Would you go with what Evangelos was saying, or would you consider that standardization is a very good way forward?
Well, I would say it depends on the product. There are retail products where I think the standards become clearer and clearer, and are also maybe ordered from car manufacturer or from other large distributors. But I think on the other hand, we have a huge chance in health. Health insurance is big. Mental health, for example, is growing with COVID. And we have SME, large corporate insurance, very complicated. I don't think the standardization there is as fast as in the retail market. And I think you need to have a expert, maybe life, health, and an SME strategy, and you need to have a retail strategy, and the both are probably totally different.
Yeah. Let's try and get through some more questions.
May I just add,
yes,
to that, I'm a bit biased because I'm part of the standardization work in the industry on the open insurance. But I think what's really different from the insurance industry to the banking industry is that in the banking industry, you have regulation around openness. So you have PSD2, you have open banking, which we do not have in insurance. And I think it's really interesting, what will drive that standardization. I mean, apparently it will not be regulation. That it doesn't seem to, come as fast as in the banking. We have IDD, but it doesn't touch upon openness at all or protecting consumers at all. So I think that'll probably be driven by the need to plug in services and products other places, but it's actually going quite slow, the standardization. We work with APIs for insurance, integrating to insurance every day, and it's massively different from case to case, and the level of openness is not very far.
Yeah. John, now you should really be taking my place today and asking lots of questions. John, you have lots of questions, I'm sure, for the panel. Anything that comes to mind in terms of what you've heard already? Not necessarily the standardization thing. Anything else that you wanted to ask the panel, John?
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to who's going to win. I think that's the simple question. Right. Retail insurers, obviously, we've got Swiss Re here. Is it going to be someone in the wholesale market? The reinsurers. Is it going to be these distributors, or is there room for everybody?
Evangelos, maybe if you wouldn't mind answering that, who'll win?
Again, to me, it's first of all, who learns very fast and can adapt. So it's more or less, if the market is there, you need to be relevant. So you need to play a kind of you need to invest in something you don't really understand at the beginning. So this is an opportunity. The question is, because you need to do so many things at the same time. So it's a data-driven business. The business model needs to change. The culture needs to change. Can you adopt with this kind of speed? And that's more the differentiator to me compared to different other companies. Just to name the AI world, right? So developing AI models. Can you allow to not keep up with the same speed? Because otherwise your underwriting perhaps profits might massively suffer. So to me, there is just too much things to do at the same time. And we in industry try to adopt slowly rather than fast.
Another question here. We've got just enough time for one more question. Let's give this a go. Changing your business model is a major task. Are there small steps that insurers can take to start moving towards the platform model? Any thoughts? Any hands up for the steps that you can take to move towards platformification? I've got a raised eyebrow from some. Philippe, can I just get that to you? What should I as an insurer start looking at to take the steps in the right direction?
Yeah, I think what also helps is maybe to partner with industries who are a bit further. For example, we did a JV, joint venture, with the largest media company in Switzerland, who has quite experience with platform business. And we have a JV, and we bring in certain elements to that JV and to the platform. And our media partner knows also how to run the platform. And on that way, we learn a lot also as insurer. And so I would say with that journey, we also skill up our organization. And also it helps us to change the culture, to be more curious what a platform can and what it can't. So that was a step we did.
I think from our conversation today, there's no doubt you have to be bold. But this question continued on to, is it something you can do bit by bit, or does it require a complete overhaul to take this step? I mean, it sounds as though actually, I'll throw it to Javier if you don't mind. Actually, this is interesting, isn't it? Because, the fail fast, move on, test and learn, that seems to be absolutely relevant for these times. But the mindset that everybody here has been talking about, the mindset has to change quite substantially.
Absolutely, and in order to change it, I think you need to focus first on one use case. So the way is to go greenfield, go one use case, choose one ecosystem, even it's health, mobility, or home, and execute. First small, prepare the technology for that. You open the technology so that it could be then leveraged to other systems. But you start and make it work in one. And once you've been successful in one, then you prepare to leverage and to expand to other avenues. But you need success, but you need to go fast. So go greenfield, escape from legacy, go greenfield, and then you will be able to expand.
Great, wonderful. I'm afraid it's time to wrap up part one of day two. A big thanks to our panelists for their insights and to you for tuning in and submitting your questions. Great as always. Plus, thanks to our pundits for their contributions as ever. Brilliant. And we will see you a bit later on. Remember, you can meet your fellow attendees and keep the conversation going right here on our event platform, Grip. All you need to do is to head to the networking tab to start a conversation. We now have a 25-minute break for you to grab a drink and do some networking, or you can check out one of our sponsor hubs. There's some fantastic stuff on those. Do that right from the homepage.